Hi guys, I'm Kat and today I have for you a greeting in Romanian, a true crime case and also makeup. So the greeting for today is Bună seara. Bună seara. Bună seara. Well done guys, you just said good evening. Before we get started with today's video, I just need to give you a trigger warning from the get-go. This video will involve me talking about child abuse which resulted in the child's death, also animal abuse and self. So if this is something that you would rather not be watching, then by all means you can stop watching this video now and I will see you in the next one. Also the disclaimer, this video is for educational purposes only. I don't mean any disrespect to anyone I talk about in the video. All the information I'm giving you is already found in the public domain, and I'll also be sharing my own views and opinions around the case I'm talking about. Thank you so much. So let's get started. And also guys, I just want to apologize in advance. I do apologize. I am so sorry for the names that I will be pronouncing. Some of them are Welsh names, so I have been really struggling to pronounce them correctly, but I am going to try my best. Anyway, I don't mean any disrespect to anyone, so that's why I wanted to just, get it out there from the get-go. Shortly after 6 a.m. on Saturday, 31st of July 2021, the lifeless body of Logan Mwangi was found in the River Ogmore near his home in Sarn. Logan was 5 years old. He was described by everyone who knew him as a wonderful child, bright, chatty and artistic. A little boy who could light up a room. His father, Ben Moangi, didn't live near, but he tried his best to stay in contact with his son. He describes Logan as the sweetest and most beautiful boy and says that the world is a colder and darker place without his warm smile and the happy energy with which he lived his short life. Because Logan was killed in his own home and by his own family, we will never know exactly what happened to him, but it's very clear that shortly before his death, Logan was subjected to a brutal attack. So let's get into all the details. Logan Mwangi was born on March 15, 2016 in Bridgend, Wales, United Kingdom, and was described as a lovely boy, cheerful, chatty, polite, kind and caring, with a slight stammer, but otherwise he was very healthy. His father was Benjamin Mwangi, who lived in Brentwood, Essex, but Logan had very little contact with his father during his life after Logan's mom and dad separated and she prevented him from seeing his son. Logan's teacher at Towndu Primary School, Catherine Richards, said that Logan was a loving, kind little boy. He loved school, he loved being in the outdoor classroom, and he would light up the classroom with his smile. He was very bright, he loved the muddy kitchen and his numbers. He was engrossed in everything, inquisitive, and he just loved learning. He was a polite little boy. A friend of the family, Leanne Davis, saw Logan as a happy, jolly kid. Her own son was the boisterous one of the two and the boys would run off together. Logan was well behaved and he listened. Another friend, Ryan Hales, described Logan as just amazing, with the best smile and the sweetest friend you could ask for your children. The smiling schoolboy with a cheeky grin, brown curly hair and kind eyes loved posing for the cameras, and in his photos he looked happy. But the cute, loving photos of Logan Mwangi hide the horror of what went on behind the scenes at the hands of his mother, her partner and his son. 31-year-old Angharad Williamson was born on March 16, 1991 in Essex. She was Logan's mother and they lived together at 5 Lower Jensenfried in Sarn, Bridgend. She received private primary school education and she went to public school until she was 16 years old. In 2014, she was convicted of 2 charges of theft after misusing her mother's bank card, and she was arrested for taking her mother's car, but no charges were brought. Angharad moved to Wales in 2015 after becoming pregnant with Logan so she could live with her mother. During this time, Benjamin remained living and working in Essex, but he was present for Logan's birth in 2016. During Angharad's pregnancy, she began suffering seizures. After moving back to Essex with Logan and Benjamin for a short time, Angharad and Logan returned to Bridgend and the couple then separated. In 2017, Angharad met and married Jordan Hunt, but they also separated after Jordan was convicted of attacking her. Angharad and Logan visited Ben in Essex in 2019, but this was the last time that he saw his son alive. Ben initially kept in contact with Logan and even moved to South Wales shortly before his birth in March 2016 to help co-parent. He continued to have occasional telephone contact with Logan during visits with his grandmother, Angharad's mother, at weekends. However, that soon ended when Angharad stopped Logan from visiting her mother. The last time Ben saw his son was 19 months before his death, and those were his last memories of him. Ben had been the first person to hold Logan when he was born. He used to hold him so tight. He was the best thing that happened to Ben. The last time that he saw Logan, he took him out for breakfast and lunch. He wanted to stop for a bit. Logan wanted to stop for a bit because he wanted to watch all the workmen working. He wanted to watch a crane and things like that. That was the last time that Ben saw Logan alive. When he next tried to contact Angharad in an attempt to see his son, he said, quote, "For the past 5 years, I have been struggling and trying to fight to just see Logan, and she made my life an absolute misery. All I wanted to do was be a dad." End of quote. Logan's grandmother, Claire Williamson, described her son as the apple of her eye. She said that he absolutely loved his dad. Logan was a very bright child and a joy to be around. He was thirsty to learn, and they spent a lot of time playing with him and stimulating him. He had a close relationship with his grandmother and would often have sleepovers at her house. But after John came into Logan's life, his grandmother saw less and less of him until contact was stopped permanently. In 2019, Angharad, she met and started a relationship with John Cole. They met each other at the Railway Inn pub in Bridgend, and they slept together that night. Afterwards, they started a relationship which Angharad described as perfect. She said that she desperately wanted a fairy tale family. Ben Moangi said that as soon as John stepped onto the scene in 2019, everything completely changed. He said, quote, "He said that I was talking to her too much, but obviously we'd only talk about Logan. And after that, everything just fell apart. She sent me a nasty message saying Logan has a family now, he doesn't need me, and I'm never going to see my son again. Because I hadn't seen Logan in so long, I had absolutely no knowledge or no idea about what was going on. I had absolutely no knowledge whatsoever about what was happening to Logan." End of quote. Angharad's mother described her daughter as a melodramatic person and over-emotional, but they were best friends. Angharad used to be a great mom to Logan, although an over-anxious one. She always encouraged Logan to learn, took pride in his achievements, and demanded the best for him. But something had changed, and changed significantly and tragically. It seems that Angharad's relationship with John was the trigger for that change. Even though she would later claim that she was in fear of John, This wasn't exactly true. They had a volatile, argumentative relationship, but she was able to stand up for herself and she did it when needed. As time went on, however, her relationship with John caused her focus to shift from Logan to the child she had with John and to John's child, Craig Mulligan. Logan then became a burden, and in Angharad's eyes, he was badly behaved, naughty, and a demanding child. This was the opposite of what everyone who knew Logan described him. She encouraged or assisted in the assault on her son. The ferocious and fatal assault could not have taken place without her full knowledge and complicity. The brutality of this assault on a small child means that no intent carries little weight. In particular, the anguish that Logan must have suffered in this assault, knowing that his mother was involved in this assault of him and did nothing to protect him, is just unimaginable. Neither before or after did Angharad do anything to protect her son. She didn't seek any medical assistance. She even took an active part in the plan to conceal what had happened. Logan attended Tondu Primary School. Logan's teacher, Miss Richards, said that Angharad was over-emotional and over-familiar, and she would be angry at staff on a number of occasions. She was also described as a needy person who liked being the center of attention. The head teacher of the primary school, Jane Prelogouskas, described Angharad as volatile, and she came across as overprotective to the point that she wouldn't expose Logan to anything. 40-year-old John J. Cole, Angharad's partner, was born on 4th of February 1982 in Rugby, Warwickshire. He was given the nickname Jay by his sister, who died during childbirth. John was a former member of the National Front, and former friends and colleagues described him as very racist. One friend had said that John was very racist to Asian or black people or any people who were different. His interests were playing late night gaming sessions on his Xbox and also going to the gym. He has a number of previous convictions on his record dating back 2 decades. He was convicted of common assault in September 2002. In April 2003, he was convicted of assault occasioning actual bodily harm, followed by a battery conviction in October 2004. In March 2005, he was convicted of resisting or obstructing a constable. In April 2006, there was a conviction for possession of cannabis. In September 2007, he was convicted of intimidation of a witness, battery, blackmail, and perverting the course of justice. He was also convicted of burglary, theft, handling stolen goods, going equipped for theft, possession of a bladed article, criminal damage, possession of cannabis, and resisting a police officer. John had previously been in a relationship with Craig Mulligan's mother for more than a decade and brought up her son Craig as his own. They lived in the Midlands before moving to Wales in 2017 for a fresh start. His address was at 20 Maysglass in Ainsedra, Bridgend, but he was mainly living at Angharad's home at the time of Logan's death. Logan's grandmother, Claire Williamson, first clashed heads with John when Angharad was in hospital and she was looking after Logan. She would take Logan to the hospital, and John didn't want her to take Logan in the room so he doesn't disturb Angharad. But Claire felt that he was a 2-year-old child and he needed his mother. 14-year-old Craig Mulligan was born on October the 2nd, 2007 in Coventry. He is John's stepson. He was placed into care at the beginning of 2021 after his biological mother assaulted him and was sectioned under the Mental Health Act. She also claimed for many months to have cancer, which in fact was not true. Craig's biological father, who remained absent throughout his life, died in a car crash in 2012. Craig's foster mom said that he talked about the horror film series The Purge, and he told her that when the new film came out, he was going to kill her, her husband, her daughter and their dog. This completely horrified the foster mom. She told the teenager's social worker about what he said, but the social worker just brushed it off as if it was nothing. Craig once managed to convince his foster mom to buy him a metal baseball bat. She believed that he wanted the bat to play a game, but what he did, he went straight to a local park and he began smashing it up. On the day that Craig was supposed to leave the family scared to live with John, his stepdad, and Angharad, he just turned into a monster and the foster mom had to leave the house. The foster mom's daughter mentioned that Craig tried to get her young nieces to play a murder game and told them that he would put them in black bags. She also described him slashing a paddling pool with a knife. Craig had a desire for violence, and on one occasion he grabbed the family dog by its back legs and sprayed deodorant in its eyes. Craig really liked to torture animals. A teacher described Craig attacking a fellow pupil without any provocation. Craig was jumping on another boy and pulling him to the ground by putting his arm around his throat. When asked why he had done it, he said that he was dared to do it by another boy. He was also described by a neighbor as pulling a little girl's feet from under her, causing her to injure her face. On another occasion, he was caught repeatedly punching another pupil in the midriff. When asked to stop, he said, quote, "No, he's an asshole." Craig was simply besotted with his stepfather and he would do anything for him. A dog tag later discovered by police featured a picture of Craig which said, quote, "To Dad, happy Father's Day, love Craig," end of quote. Craig is described as a complex, troubled and violent boy who achieved a green belt in Muay Thai, which includes forceful kicking and punching. He could also be manipulative and would use a baby voice whenever he would be in trouble. In the week running up to Logan's death, Craig made repeated threats that he wanted to kill his stepbrother and wanted him dead. He told his foster sister that he wanted to kill the 5-year-old. Craig's social worker, Debbie Williams, said that he would swear at her and he would also tell her to F off, but described it as more of a banter thing, even though she acknowledged that he sometimes went too far. Craig had been diagnosed as suffering from multiple neurodevelopmental difficulties and his emotional, cognitive and emotional development had been affected. The lack of maturity was quite obvious in his aggressive response to other people. Craig idolized his father John. John was the only father that Craig knew and grew up with, as his biological father was never in the picture. All Craig wanted was to gain John's approval. Craig didn't live in the family home for over 6 months. He didn't even see Logan as a brother. When he was in foster care, he referred to Logan as the 5-year-old, and on more than one occasion said that he wanted to kill Logan. It was either because, Logan was living with John and the three of them were seen as a family, but Craig was in foster care, or Craig said these things for more sinister reasons. While he was in foster care, there was no evidence that he mistreated Logan at any time. There were some claims that he pushed Logan down the stairs in August 2020 when his arm was broken. However, this has not been proven. At the time that Logan broke his arm, Angharad told the police officer that everyone else was downstairs when Logan fell. Her friend Ryan and Hales said that a few weeks later Angharad told her that Craig admitted pushing Logan down the stairs, but that Angharad remembered everyone had been downstairs. It's all a bit confusing with this account. It wasn't until January 2021 that Angharad reported to police that Craig told her he pushed Logan down the stairs. However, Just a year earlier, in August 2020, her story was different, and by her own admissions, she was told different things at different times, and she actually got confused by it. At the time of Logan's death, Craig had just moved in with Logan, John, Angharad and the baby, just around a week prior. So at this point, they are all living together in the same house. John was in fact fighting for Craig to be taken out of foster care and move in with them. It would have been obvious to Craig that Logan, being only 5 years old, was vulnerable. He was 8 years younger than him and much smaller. The pain and suffering caused to Logan must have been obvious to Craig as well, but he did nothing to protect and help him. Angharad and John were mistreating Logan, whether it was by subjecting him to severe punishments or failing to report injuries. There were a lot of red flags during the run-up to Logan's death. John was racist towards Logan, and he even gave him the name Cocoa Pop because of his skin color. John didn't like him at all and treated him unkindly because of his racist beliefs. The couple were strict parents, and on one occasion John told Angharad's friend Ryan that he didn't like Logan, but he would always love his mom, although he didn't love him. Jody Simmons met John and Angharad in 2019 and witnessed Logan being punished by them. John was sat in the doorway. Logan was in a push-up position. His arms looked tired and they were shaking. He was upset, crying, and he also had a runny nose. Jody was told he had been naughty and needed to learn. Logan then collapsed. He lost the weight on his arms, but Jay or John told him to get back in position and his time would start again. Logan followed the instructions, but at this point Logan was 3 or 4 years old. Jody then went into the kitchen and had a chat with John about Logan's age and if it was appropriate to punish him that way. Jody was angry and frustrated at what she had to listen to. John didn't listen to her at all. He just shrugged it off and he didn't seem concerned at all. Upset when Jody saw this, she told Angharad, who was in her back garden smoking, but Angharad agreed with John, saying that Logan needs to learn because his behavior was poor and he needed to learn his lesson. Jody witnessed another incident when Logan was refused takeaway food because of his behavior. Logan was being brushed off and being told that he wasn't allowed to eat the KFC with them because of his behavior. John told him that he didn't behave well enough to deserve fast food. He was sat in between the sofa chair and the doorway on the floor. Everybody ate KFC, but Logan didn't have any. Jody felt sorry for him and she gave him some of her popcorn chicken after John left the room. Logan was given Weetabix instead to eat. John even said how tasty the food was just to rub it in Logan's face. Jody shook her head at Angharad to do something about it, but nothing happened. So just imagine if a friend witnessing this feels so bad that she gives her chicken to Logan behind John's back. How did Logan feel when everyone ate food in front of him and he wasn't allowed any? During this time, Jody noticed a change in Logan's personality and appearance. He was withdrawn, he lost visible weight, his complexion became quite pale, and he had a very quiet demeanor. He was becoming more withdrawn because he was being punished all the time. He was being sent to his room, being told off all the time, being denied cakes and sweets. Jody was present during an argument between John and Angharad, where Angharad sustained red marks around her neck and chest. She claimed that John strangled her, but John said he just pushed her away when she got in his face. Logan's stammer is said to have worsened, becoming particularly bad around John. He wet himself more frequently and began self-harming. Can you just imagine? A boy at 5 years old to begin self-harming is just unimaginable. In August 2020, Logan was taken to hospital by Angharad after suffering what she believed to be a dislocated arm, but when the arm was treated, It was discovered to actually be a fractured upper arm. She told officers that she tried to pop the arm back in its socket and sent Logan to bed with Calpol the night before, but when he woke up in the morning, his arm didn't look right. In a statement to police, she said that she decided she could pop Logan's arm back in place. She took a firm hold of his arm, pulled it straight, and twisted the arm back. She put it back in place and heard a click. Logan was in pain when he clicked back in place, but he felt better and he stopped crying. At the time, she said that she believed she was doing the right thing by putting his arm back in place, but then realized it was a mistake. She also told police that she felt guilty about that and sorry that she didn't take Logan to the hospital the day before. Angharad later called the police in January 2021 and claimed that Craig confessed to her he pushed Logan down the stairs and that it was actually John who tried to put Logan's arm back in place, but she lied to protect him. Logan's social worker, Gaynor Rush, said Logan suffered what was described as a burn on his neck from a bathtub, but John later claimed that Angharad deliberately burnt Logan's neck with a hot teaspoon because he was being annoying. Neighbor Kevin Gorman described hearing arguments at 5 Lower Jansenfried and described John as the more volatile. As time went on, closer to the tragic events of today's case, the shouting at Logan was getting worse and worse. He would get quite upset. According to Kevin, 2 weeks before Logan's death, he heard Angharad going out the door to school. Logan ran out to the gate and she said, quote, "Don't go through that effing gate," end of quote. Logan shouted down to Angharad's friend with 2 young children who was coming up the path. Logan shouted and Angharad said, quote, "Logan, I told you, stop your effing shouting. Everyone can effing hear you. Shut up." She also said, "He's being an effing again," end of quote. In another incident, Logan was made to stand in the garden while facing the wall in just his pajamas and bare feet. For half an hour he was there by the window and the other people in the house or in the garden, they were just there outside drinking coffee and chatting. Someone came down the street and told Logan to sit down on the step and he just sat there with his hands on his knees. Kevin, the neighbor, felt really uncomfortable when he witnessed that. He said that there was no need to behave with a child that way. Another neighbor, Fred Mitchell, also recalled hearing arguing from John and Angharad and described their tone towards Logan as aggressive and nasty. They would use foul language such as stupid bitch towards Logan. Teachers at Logan's school, they also noticed a change in Logan, with Mrs. Richards describing him as nervous after soiling himself and asking for his clothing to be thrown away. His stammer became worse and he was also described by a learning support officer as losing weight and having dark circles around his eyes. Logan was placed on the Child Protection Register in March 2021 due to concerns about John. Social workers were expected to visit the family every 10 days and they were able to offer additional help. Mrs. Rush, who was assigned that task until she left her post just weeks before Logan was murdered, said that during her unscheduled visits to Lower Jansenfried, the house seemed clean and Logan well presented and clean with plenty of toys. Angharad appeared to adore Logan and only wanted the best for him. She said she initially found John intimidating, but her relationship with him and Angharad improved over time. She did, however, express frustration with Debbie Williams, who was Craig's social worker, claiming that she refused to share information or work with her closely. Months later, in June 2021, they were placed instead on a child in need plan, which is for children who are not deemed at risk but have complex needs and need provisions to help with their development. During this time, John applied for custody of Craig with the support of Angharad and went through the family courts in order to become his stepson's legal guardian. He later claimed that he was not told about issues Craig had suffered with foster families, and he was not told about threats made by him to kill Logan. John was awarded custody by the courts, and Craig was sent to live with the family on a permanent basis, which I find extremely odd, if I am quite honest with you here. How could John have been granted custody by the courts with his extensive criminal record? Not only that, but Craig had shown violence, he had issues, and said on numerous occasions that he wants to kill Logan. So how could the court and social services agree for him to move into the home where there were two children, Logan 5 years old and the 18-month-old baby? It just doesn't make any sense. Unless, in my opinion, social workers, they were really trying to kind of get rid of Craig in the sense that, you know, he always caused issues when he was in foster care, so they kind of just wanted to get rid of him really and send him to live with his dad instead, so they don't take any more responsibility, especially considering that Craig had been really violent, and he was in and out of foster care, and the foster parents were struggling to kind of control him. So it's possible that this is the reason why social services and the court kind of agreed, like, you know what, let's just don't have responsibility over him anymore, let's just give him to his parent because he'll probably be able to, you know, manage his behavior. It kind of looks that way to me, if I'm honest with you, but of course that's just my opinion. Logan's last week alive was just miserable, absolutely miserable. He was lonely and isolated. He tested positive for COVID and he was confined to his room behind a barred gate with the windows and curtains closed, in a room described as a dungeon. He was prevented from interacting with the rest of the family, and when food was brought to his room, he was forced to look away and face the wall. Craig arrived at 5 Lower Jensen Fried on Monday, July 26, 2021. The long-term plan was for the family to move to Maze Glass, where Logan and Craig would share a bedroom before they applied for a bigger flat. Logan was last seen alive by someone other than his mother, stepfather and Craig during a FaceTime call between John and his friend Callum Williams on July 27th. He was sat on the stairs coloring numbers, and he was described by Callum as joyful and quite happy. In the days prior to Logan's death, he had tested positive for COVID. His mother and stepfather actually had a good reason to be cautious about the virus, as their younger son, then aged 18 months, was born with difficult circumstances, and they were concerned about any infection that could affect his lungs. However, the manner in which they treated Logan was beyond extreme. He was kept in isolation in his room for 10 days. There was a baby gate across the doorway which was there to keep the baby out, but it also served to keep Logan in. Logan had no physical contact with his mother. When food was brought to him, he was required to turn away, literally to face the wall, while food was put down on the floor and left for him. He was only 5 years old, and he was also expected to just entertain himself in one room all day with toys and activities on screen, on his own. Now, you tell me, what 5-year-old would be able to spend a whole day only in their bedroom, on their own, the whole time, with no other human contact? Curtains closed so he can't see anything outside, a baby gate outside of his room so he can't go anywhere else, effectively held in a cage, and expected to just be okay with it, not to cry or be frustrated or irritated or nothing like that. This treatment of Logan was the culmination of treatment which dehumanized him in the eyes of his mother and stepfather. While teachers and other people who knew him described an engaging, well-behaved child, Angharad and John described a badly behaved boy who was very often naughty and demanding of attention. Of course that, you know, Logan, he would be demanding of attention since he was being kept alone in a room a whole day. Every day, of course, he longed for human contact, just like any other person would. They punished him by refusing him takeaway food with the rest of the family and making him stand for up to half an hour facing a wall. John would also eat in front of him, teasing him as he wasn't allowed to eat. Neighbors heard shouting at Logan, which was aggressive and nasty. One neighbor heard Angharad shout at him to stop acting like an effing dickhead. On the Friday before Logan was found dead, Angharad said that he had been running around like an absolute toon, then sitting on the floor and refusing to get up. John described him lying on the floor, refusing to get up and refusing to eat. At 2:51 p.m. on July 29, 2021, there was an argument between Angharad and Craig outside the house. Craig was seen hanging onto Angharad as she was trying to leave the property. She was described by witnesses as hysterical. Craig stood in the gateway and pushed her back into the garden before she went back into the house. The neighbor, Mr. Witcher, witnessed the altercation and he actually described Angharad as hysterical and Craig as desperate, as he tried to convince his stepmother to go back into the house. The neighbor claimed that she told Craig, "You're making a scene, Craig." Angharad later claimed that she tried to leave the house after John and Craig viciously assaulted Logan by punching him to the stomach and sweeping his feet to knock him down. At 1:45 p.m. on July 30th, Craig's social worker, Debbie, arrived at the property, but she was refused entry to the house on the grounds of Logan's COVID diagnosis. She stood outside speaking with John and Angharad. John asked her about benefits for 20 minutes before she left the property. During her visit, she was told that Logan was up and down, but no serious concerns were actually reported. She briefly spoke with Craig, who told her to F off, of course. Later that evening, John claimed that he assaulted Logan by clipping him to the back of the head because he refused to have a bath, because of his fear of water, apparently. So I don't know how you can get a 5-year-old to stop being scared of water if you're gonna assault him when he's scared of water, of having a bath. I mean, I remember exactly that my 5-year-old, he was terrified of going into the bath, but by no means did I think that it's okay to assault him so he's not scared of the water, so he has a bath instead. It just, doesn't make any sense. John also said that he threw him on the bed and then Angharad grabbed Logan by the collar of his pajama top and shouted, "Stop effing lying," in anger. At 5 a.m. on the morning of July 31st, neighbor Paula Heath was woken by the sound of bickering or arguing, but she couldn't tell what was being said. She then heard a woman shouting, "What have you done with my son? Where is my son? I want my son." The woman seemed hysterical, as if in sheer panic. She then heard the male shouting, "I have done nothing with your son." It was Angharad shouting out Logan's name a number of times and then shouting, "I want my son. The back door is wide open. He has got no socks on. He has got no shoes on." At 5:46 a.m., Angharad made a phone call to 999 to police in which she said that Logan was missing from their home. She appeared distraught, distressed and quite upset throughout the call and claimed that she had woken up to find Logan missing from his bed and she could not find him anywhere in the house. Angharad could be heard shouting out Logan, and later she told police officers that the back gate had been left open. She even tried to pass the blame to Rebecca Trudgill, John Cole's former partner, Craig's mother. She suggested to the police that Rebecca took Logan for some kind of revenge because John had gained custody of Craig, and she even encouraged the police to pursue their inquiries with her. She knew that Rebecca was a troubled woman, and she also knew that Rebecca was completely innocent. Throughout the call to 999, she was hyperventilating actually, and she was even begging the police to find Logan. While she was doing this, John and Craig pretended to be out looking for Logan, and they could even be heard shouting his name down the road.
Please help me, please!
Where are you?
My son's not here, my boyfriend's not here!
Okay,
Help
take
me,
a breath,
please.
take a breath, because I can't understand you when you're crying. Where are you?
5, Lower Lansdowne, Freddie the Sarn.
Lower what, sorry?
Lower Lansdowne, Freddie the Sarn, said somebody is not here!
Okay, who's not there?
My son, he's alive, he's not here!
Okay, take a breath. When did you see him last?
I touched him in the bed last night and I've just got up for my son and the other one's not here! Logan!
Okay, take a breath. He's 5 and he's gone. Can you see any of the doors open?
Logan!
I need you to speak to me, not just shout. I know it's really full on and it's really scary. I need you to tell me. What's his name? Is his name Logan?
Logan Williamson, please.
And he's 5. Is he 5, did you say?
He's 5, please.
Okay. Tell me what he looks like, please.
He's a little mixed race boy. He's just got his spidey pajamas on. Wearing shoes.
Okay, is anybody else there with you? Any other adults?
Yeah, my partner. He's
Okay.
looking now.
Right. Are any of the doors or windows open?
Doors, windows, what's open? Someone tell me what.
Take a breath. I know that this is terrifying. But right now I need you to try to breathe so I can get the information I need. Can you see?
My back gate is open. My back gate is open.
Okay, back gate. Where does the back gate lead to?
I don't know what the road's called.
That's fine. It leads onto a road as opposed to a field or anything like that, does it? Okay.
I'm running up it now. It's concrete.
Okay. What's your name?
You've got to look at him now.
What's your name? I need to know your name a second.
Angharad.
Okay, Angharad, I really need you to just take a breath for a second, okay? Because you're starting to hyperventilate. I know that this is very, very scary. I need you to stay in the house. So who's run out after Logan?
My fiance, my partner.
Your partner has, okay. So Dad's gone out looking, yeah? What's Dad's name?
John Cole. He's stepdad, but virtually dad.
A number of police officers attended the home and the search was carried out to try and find Logan. PC Lauren Keane was one of the officers tasked with finding him, and she began her search at 5:55 a.m. Police Constable Keane and colleague Special Constable Peter Freet were checking a hedge when they spotted the body of a child in the River Ogmore. PC Keane jumped into the river and she activated her body-worn camera. She reached the boulders at the bank of the river, and that's when she saw Logan. She said, quote, Logan was lying on his right side in an open fetal position. He was submerged under the water. I went into the water, took 3 strides to get where he was, and picked Logan up in my arms and took him up to where Special Constable Freet was. I wasn't able to see his face initially until I picked him up. I could see he had an injury to the left side of his face. His eyes were open, his body was stiff, his lips were blue. Immediately, I formed the opinion Logan was deceased. End of quote. Logan's lifeless, cold and pale body was recovered by BC Keane, who brought him up the riverbank. He was dressed in a black Spider-Man pyjama top and multicolored dinosaur pyjama bottoms. Paramedic Mark Howers attended the scene to treat him. He said that his skin was pale and mottled. He was blue in color and had a bruise above his left eye, probably the length of his eyebrow. He was profoundly hypothermic with a temperature of 20.1 degrees and showed no signs of life. Based on the information from the mother and his body temperature as well, there was an assumption he could have been there for a few hours. Logan was taken to the Princess of Wales Hospital in Bridgend, but despite the best efforts of the emergency services, Logan was sadly pronounced dead at 7:15 a.m. It was revealed that Logan had suffered catastrophic injuries to his internal organs and his brain. These injuries were so extreme that they were considered to be consistent with a fall from a great height or a high-velocity road traffic collision. There were extensive injuries to the abdomen, including a lacerated liver, a tear to the bowel, and a degloving injury to the duodenum, which is part of the small intestine. The pathologist also found 300 milliliters of dark liquid blood in the abdominal cavity. He also suffered extensive bruising to the scalp and back of the head, and his brain suffered significant trauma. There was hemorrhaging to the right side of the head and inside the skull. Neurologist Dr. George Lemmy said he believed there was evidence of more than one brain injury and possibly more than one episode of trauma. Logan had also sustained 56 bruises, cuts and abrasions to his body, including a visible cut to his forehead. The injuries were believed to be consistent with blunt force trauma and a forceful assault. There was no evidence to suggest that Logan had drowned, and it was established he died before entering the river. Pathologist Dr. John Williams said there was evidence of healing in some of the injuries, which suggested there was a period of survival up to several hours between the point injuries were caused and Logan's death. Injuries to the brain were believed to have been caused 36 to 48 hours before his death. The severity of these injuries could be expected with a fall or collapse, and in the absence of a high-velocity accident, the injuries were consistent with a blow or blows, a kick or kicks, or impact of impacts with a weapon. Logan also had a fractured collarbone which was left untreated for several weeks, with parts of the bone not knitted together. The cause of Logan's death was given as blunt force abdominal injury and cerebral injury, including brain swelling, hypoxic ischemic neuronal injury, and traumatic brain injury. Pediatrician Dr. Deborah Stoker said that Logan's caregivers would have been aware Logan was seriously ill after sustaining the injuries, and he would have suffered significant pain. If conscious, he would have been visibly distressed. The injuries were indicative of an abused child having sustained thumps, kicks and stamps. More shockingly, she said that Logan would have likely survived hours rather than days, but that if he had received prompt medical attention, he had an 80% chance of survival. Throughout the search for Logan, none of these three monsters gave anything away, and they even appeared genuinely concerned for him while hoping he would return safe and sound. But this was only an elaborate performance. Ryan and Hales attended the flat after being called by Angharad at 6 a.m. She was Angharad's friend. Angharad was asking her if Logan was at her house, as he wasn't at home. Angharad appeared distraught, so of course that her friend tried to calm her down, but she was told, quote, "Don't tell me to calm down, my child is missing." Ryan rushed to her friend's house, but she was not allowed inside by the police, and so she decided to go and search the local area for Logan. Her route took her past the school which Logan and her daughter attended. Because Logan loved school, she thought that maybe Logan went there. Further on, she saw police cars, ambulances, and a sniffer dog. Later, when she spoke to a police officer, she was told that they had located Logan and it didn't look good. While police were at the flat, the sound of a tumble dryer could be heard. It had items such as Logan's bed linen, which were washed to, you guessed it, get rid of evidence. During conversations with numerous police officers, Angharad was described as acting erratically, hysterically and emotionally, and at one point she appeared to suffer a seizure. Police Constable Richard Leah, who attended the flat, said, quote, "I told her Logan was unconscious and she asked me to clarify what I meant. I said he was unconscious and my colleagues were trying to revive him." End of quote. And I'll be playing the clip for you right here.
I'm not saying it's not reasonable.
If he's unconscious, he needs me. He needs warm
needs the
clothes.
ambulance
He
service
needs
at the minute.
mum.
They've got blankets.
He needs his
blankets, okay.
I feel so useless, Dad.
I know.
It's not my fault. I'm not allowed to see my own biological son.
Angharad, look.
He is unconscious.
Listen,
Why is he unconscious?
Listen, I don't know. I don't know. Right now, the best thing...
All I'm getting is answers like this. Why is no one telling me what's going on?
I don't know. Sweetheart, look.
He's
please,
my baby.
darling.
What's going on?
You need to do their job. Yeah?
No good.
Police Constable Brian Cooper described John as upset. He was sat on the floor rolling cigarettes. But Craig, he was playing Call of Duty on the Xbox. While being shot at, Craig shouted, quote, "You're effing adopted." So go figure. Craig didn't have anything better to do after his stepbrother goes missing and then he's found dead, but to play on the Xbox. Wonderful. When Angharad went to the hospital to see Logan's body, she was described by a nurse as saying she wished she had taught Logan to swim. She also asked a nurse why Logan was wet, and when she was told that he was found in the river, she claimed that she was not informed about that, about Logan being found in the river. She also appeared to give attention to Logan's body only when nurses were watching. Claire Williamson, Logan's grandmother, also attended the hospital. She found it really strange that Angharad was really concerned for Logan. She kept tucking him up with blankets, worrying that he was cold, and then she started talking about his funeral. Speaking to police officers at the hospital, Claire told them they should arrest Angharad because she failed to keep her son safe. Detective Constable Claire Edwards said, quote, "Although she did seem to be wailing a lot, making noises of crying or sobbing, there were very little or no tears during the time I was with her." End of quote. After speaking to police, nurses noticed a change in Angharad and described her as aggressive with a nasty streak about her. She even made a point of kissing Logan's forehead whilst being observed by hospital staff, like this was some kind of a show for her. Logan's father, Benjamin Moangi, was at work in Essex when between 2 p.m. and 2:30 p.m. officers came to see him. Just before they arrived, Ben actually received a phone call from his brother, but he was quite erratic on the phone and Ben couldn't really make sense of what he was saying. Ben told his colleague that something serious must have happened. Ben's father had been unwell lately, so Ben believed at this point that something happened with his father. When police arrived, Ben went in the back office with them and asked if something had happened with his father. When the police said it wasn't about his father, he was instantly thinking about Logan. Quote, "Please tell me this isn't anything to do with Logan." They told him that Logan had passed away. He was hysterical and he just fell to the floor. He left work without even telling anyone what happened and police took him home. Quote, "I just collapsed on the floor and hit my head. I just felt like every fiber in my body had died and couldn't stop crying. I couldn't understand how something like this could have happened to my son." The rest of the day was a blur as I waited for more information. It was so painful. The following day, when I was made aware that Logan's mother had been arrested on suspicion of murder, I am just devastated that I couldn't have been there to protect him. End of quote. Claire Williamson visited her daughter Angharad on the 1st of August 2021. Angharad told her not to be surprised, which is quite interesting. Angharad told her not to be surprised if her and John will be arrested. Of course that her mother asked her why, they would be arrested if they haven't done anything wrong. Angharad said something about the fact that it happened whilst Logan was in their care. While at their home, Claire said that Craig appeared to be acting strangely, and whilst they were discussing Logan in the kitchen, he came in and said, "For God's sake, he's dead." Jodie Simmons, you remember Jodie Simmons, their friend, and her then partner Daniel O'Brien visited their home, and Daniel described Angharad as acting very strangely. Something just wasn't quite right. Angharad had said that she missed punishing Logan and telling him to stand in the corner. Daniel was in shock. He looked at his partner and he shook his head. John was heaving a lot like he was going to be sick. Craig seemed to be, celebrating. He seemed quite happy. Jodie said, quote, "I thought it was strange. I wouldn't be taking phone calls if he was my son. Angharad asked me what I heard and if I heard any news about what had happened to Logan, and I told her I hadn't heard anything." End of quote. Angharad became angry and she even kicked the cupboard door when she received a phone call and she was being told about the results of the post-mortem examination. Jodie said, quote, "At that point, I knew something wasn't right. Me and Dan had exchanged a number of looks and I didn't feel comfortable." End of quote. Describing Craig's demeanor, Jodie said, quote, "Happy. He wanted to size Dan up. He was stood there with fists up and chest out as if to say, 'Come on.' He was smiling, laughing as if he was celebrating. I asked him to pipe down and go back into the living room, and so he did." End of quote. That night, John called his childhood friend Darren Casely and asked him if he had seen the news about a 5-year-old boy drowning in Bridgend, and told his friend that that boy was Logan. He was described as bursting into tears and said, quote, "I brought him up since he was a baby. What was I supposed to do?" Darren, the friend, believed that John was actually referring to Logan, but he was in fact referring to his stepson, Craig. A CCTV camera from a property in a nearby street, Hewell Jensenfried, which overlooked 5 Lower Jensenfried, proved essential in finding out what happened to Logan. It showed John and Craig leaving the address at 2:43 a.m. John appeared to be carrying an object which kind of looked like a light cross on his back. This was later identified as the arms of Logan's lifeless body. They were then seen walking in the direction of Pendy Park, following the path along the river before dumping Logan's body like fly tipping rubbish near a sewage pipe and the railway bridge. After John and Craig left the property, the light in Logan's bedroom could be seen switched on and off by Angharad. At 2:44 a.m. the curtain in Logan's room was partially opened by her, causing the light from inside the flat to shine brightly. The light was seen switching on and off between 10:09 p.m. and 3:31 a.m. When John and Craig returned to the address at 2:51 a.m., they were seen leaving again at 3:16 a.m. towards the direction of the river to dispose of Logan's ripped dinosaur pyjama top in Woodland, before returning back to the flat at 3:27 a.m. Logan was placed far out into the water to make it look as if he just wandered off and then he drowned, or maybe to, try and provide an explanation for his injuries. They then gave the story that they would be fly tipping in the river, which was wrong of them, of course, but obviously this was intended to disguise what they were doing. However, they decided to dispose of Logan's body as if they were disposing of rubbish. Logan's Paw Patrol pillow, a duvet, a mattress protector were recovered from his bedroom and were found to contain small patches of blood staining. When these were analyzed, the blood contained a DNA sample which matched with Logan. On August the 4th, a search was carried out among woodland near Pendy Park when a pyjama top belonging to Logan was discovered near an embankment next to the A4063. It was a multicolored dinosaur pyjama top which was ripped into 3 pieces. An examination showed there was neckline damage to the collar of the top. On the night that Logan's body was dumped, there was activity on Angharad's Samsung phone, and including the watching of YouTube videos related to Dr. Pimple Popper, BMWs, makeup, conjoined sisters, pain management, tragus removal, and the cleaning of a big long toenail. The phone also accessed the Barclays banking app and the dialer application. Like, you know, like nothing just happened. She was looking at her favorite YouTube videos while her son's body lay dead in the river, lay deceased in the river. These findings actually contradicted Angharad's account that she was asleep on the night Logan's body was removed and dumped. Analysis of her phone prior to July 30th showed a pattern of YouTube videos being watched linked to pimple popping, with videos of that nature watched more than 300 times. So it was quite clear that this is something that Angharad would usually watch. In the days before Logan's death, she watched the following YouTube videos. Kidnapped 4-year-old Rebecca Lewis reunited with family. Family speaks after Utah's babysitter is sentenced to prison for shaking baby. Missing toddler just clung to me. After Logan's body was found, Angharad made a number of Google searches for news articles using the search term 5-year-old dead Bridget. She read an article on ITV News about Logan's body being found, as well as a Sky News article and a Guardian article. Angharad, John and Craig were arrested on suspicion of murder at 6:20 p.m. on August the 1st, 2021 at their home address. The reactions were quite different to each other. John was quiet and he accepted his arrest. Angharad broke down and started wailing, and Craig acted aggressively.
Okay, so this is John, okay? Alright, John. Right, you've obviously come to speak to. What I need to tell you now, okay? 1822. I'm arresting you on suspicion of the murder of Logan.
What?
I do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention one question, something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence, okay? The necessity for my arrest of you today is for prompt and effective investigation, to protect a vulnerable person, and to prevent the loss and secure of any additional evidence, okay?
Why am I getting arrested?
Right, do you want to have a sit down by there a minute, Claire? Do you want to have a sit down by here a minute, Angharad? And have a sit by here now. Sit down on the...
I haven't done anything wrong!
Do you want to have a sit down by there a minute, right? Don't want you falling down, right? Have a sit down by there, okay?
Listen, what Vicky's going to say.
Okay. Right, you're under arrest on suspicion of murder, okay? So you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention one question, something which relates to the court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Necessity for the arrest, okay, is to prevent loss of property, to allow a prompt and effective investigation, and to protect vulnerable persons and children, okay? We get social services, okay?
Don't take my children away!
No? Okay, it's as part of the investigation.
But I haven't done anything wrong!
Okay.
Where is Logan? Where is Logan,
He's
please?
still with us in the moment. He's still in the hospital with doctors.
What happened to him?
Can't explain anything further at the moment.
Why is nobody talking to me? You're supposed to be helping find out what happened, not arresting me when I'm telling you my son's...
Okay.
What is wrong with you guys? You're supposed to be helping me.
Angharad, I understand you're upset. I understand.
Is your son dead? Is your son been found in a river?
Okay, Angharad, we understand you're very upset. We've on investigation.
I'm very upset. I've just lost my son. You've taken my other children away.
While he was in police custody, John implied to a prison officer that Craig was responsible for killing Logan. He said, quote, "The thing is, I didn't kill Logan. I heard Craig reciting a rap song saying, quote, I like kids, I want to punch and kick them. I've got a moral dilemma. Do I go down for murder or protect my son?" End of quote. Angharad was remanded in custody and she was taken to HMP Eastwood Park in Gloucestershire. While in custody, she told a prison officer, quote, "My partner beat him and I was trying to deal with it myself." Joanne Brooks, an inmate, observed her acting strangely in prison when they worked on the same cleaning team and said that she was going by the name Angie. She asked Joanne if she knew who she was, if she knew her name, but Joanne hadn't heard about her. Angharad said, quote, "Have you heard of the Bridgend baby, the boy who was murdered and thrown in the river? I was his mother." Joanne felt as if she was telling her what she bought from the shops. She said she was in there for her own protection and she had been offered an identity change, dyeing her hair, changing her name, going from glasses to wearing contact lenses. She would show her photos of Logan and seemed to enjoy the notoriety of being the Bridgend baby's mom. Angharad would give Joanne different accounts about how Logan's injuries were caused and told her she attended Logan's funeral, but she told someone else in the same prison that she didn't attend the funeral, so I don't know which one was it. Angharad even told other inmates that the lights would prove her innocence. And after she was charged with murder, she actually called for a meeting with the women on her wing, and according to Joanne, she stood at the end of the table. She announced she had been charged with murder and asked if we would support her because she was going to prove her innocence and she did not kill her child. Later that evening, Angharad was watching Married at First Sight Australia in her cell whilst eating snacks and laughing. Again, I gotta say, I can't get over the fact that you get this kind of commodities in prison. She gets TV in her cell. I just can't believe it. Seriously, I mean, no wonder that they never learned their lesson, do they? Going to Craig actually made a number of inappropriate comments after his arrest while placed in care. He was heard by one carer saying, quote, "I love kids. I effing love kids. I love to punch kids in the head. It's orgasmic," end of quote. He also told another care worker, quote, "I did some bad stuff, but I'm not allowed to talk about it," end of quote. On another occasion, he was heard shouting, quote, "Where are the kids? I want to kill all the kids," end of quote. He also told one care worker, quote, "If you knew what was going on in my head, trust me, you don't want to know," end of quote. He later said, quote again, "I ain't letting my dad take the blame. No way. I might just plead guilty next week. My solicitor knows all about my mental state and I forget stuff," end of quote. During his police interview, John claimed that he was woken up by Angharad, who told him Logan was dead from a freak accident. She was screaming Logan's dead. He was lying on his back with his head to the side in a weird position. His eyes were wide open. John moved his head and it flopped and there was no response. He said he tried to perform CPR and blew in his mouth and held his nose. There was no pulse. He did it for about 10 to 15 minutes. Angharad was frantic and hyperventilating. He was desperate to save him. Eventually, he stopped and she said, quote, he's dead, end of quote. Angharad said that she could hear Logan taking his last breath.
Physical contacts because of COVID. When he told him to get back on his bed, he'd just say no. I shout, I'm quite loud. In the corner and he just wouldn't stand still. Bite himself, he kept throwing himself on his hands and knees. I've come up behind him, so I've kind of just hoisted my fingers like that, picked him up, pushed him, get in bed. It was like that. It wasn't like I swung. He went to bed with no food. And Harriet said to me she heard him take his last breath. There's like a little steep kind of drop. I put him there and then I went back up.
She said, we have to get rid of this.
I didn't really hang about. I was panicking.
Bags and everything. I don't know what was in the bags, I can't remember. And then about 20 minutes after, we went back out to check whether they've gone down. We didn't say anything. We were trying to be as quiet as we could because we didn't want to wake Logan or Angharad. And I don't know whether Logan was still there at that point because we didn't look.
John also said that he didn't hit Logan in the tummy and didn't see Angharad hit him either in the stomach. Logan had been jumping around all day and it had been a difficult day. He said that both of them grabbed Logan and took him to the bedroom. John said he then fell asleep at midnight. John admitted that both of them were getting frustrated with Logan and would grab him and smack him. Angharad smacked him earlier that day but missed and actually caught him on the cheek. He also told police that after dumping Logan, Angharad told him to get rid of Logan's ripped pyjama top which he dumped in the woodland. Before her interview, Angharad was told that there was CCTV footage of John and Craig removing Logan from the house. During her interview, she said, quote, "I feel conned, so conned. I wish I had never met John. They've ruined my life." She later said, "I don't want him anywhere near me again." In her fifth interview, Angharad changed her story and she claimed that John and Craig attacked Logan on Thursday, July 29th, 2 days before he passed away. He described an assault in which John punched Logan so hard that he fell back on his bottom. John then told Craig that if Logan flinched again, he should sweep Logan's legs from under him. He did that and he then pushed Logan's head to the ground. Angharad claimed that she then ran out of the house to try and find help, but she was prevented from leaving the garden by Craig. She further claimed that that assault didn't cause serious injury and that Logan was fine afterwards. From CCTV footage from a neighboring property, she was seen leaving the house shortly before 3 p.m., walking to the gate and into the street, followed by Craig. She appeared distressed and Craig was trying to stop her from leaving. Her neighbor heard her telling Craig to stop making a scene. The Stanners, a couple passing by in their van, heard her say, quote, "Leave me alone, I want to get you," end of quote. They actually stopped to ask if they could help. She then screamed and went back into the flat, followed by Craig. It's very much possible that this was the assault on Logan which culminated in his death 2 days later. But the truth is, Angharad only claimed that she was trying to get help to try and protect herself. She made up this story when she realized that she could shift blame that way. Although on the CCTV she did seem, distressed, this was probably a characteristic of her dramatic behavior. She wasn't trying to get away from John and find help for Logan. The Stanners asked if they could help and she turned away and she went back into the house. If really she was looking for help, that would have been, the opportunity to ask for help. But what did she do? She went straight back into the house where the person she claimed to be scared of was. If really an assault happened that day, as she described it, this was not the cause of Logan's death. Logan passed away because of a combination of a blunt force trauma to the head, suffered a few hours before his death, and the abdominal trauma also suffered a few hours before his death. There may be, some truth to Angharad's account, which would be consistent with the earlier brain injury, but that makes it even worse because she had the opportunity to protect her son from further injury, but she chose to do nothing instead. The following day, she even went to the shops with her phone completely unconcerned for her son's welfare. And the only call that she made was to her social worker, sounding like just, her normal self, and saying that she just wanted to discuss a few things. If really she had been looking for help, for Logan, she could very well have used her phone to call someone, to call for help. She could have told her social worker that Logan needed help. There were just so many opportunities where she could actually help her son, but the truth is that she chose not to do it. She chose not to help her son. And not because she was in fear of John, no, but it was because she simply just didn't care. Most likely there was a far more serious attack on Logan further during that day, on 29th of July, or maybe even the following day. In the early hours of Friday, 30th of July, the curtains to Logan's bedroom were opened and closed on a number of occasions. They were closed just after 8:30 a.m., so there was only a small gap left, and they remained like that until 5:30 p.m. However, Angharad claimed that Logan was fine and he was running around whilst she was disinfecting his room following a negative COVID test. Logan's injuries meant that he could not have eaten, and all that was found in his stomach was a small quantity of cereal. While it's not known at what time in the day Logan was assaulted, resulting in him passing away, for most or part of that Friday he was injured and dying. If any one of them would have sought medical assistance for him, he had an 80% chance of survival, despite the severity of his injuries. They only needed to make a call and Logan would still be with us today. Prior to this fifth interview, Angharad denied having any knowledge of how Logan's injuries had been caused. She said that John punched him in the stomach. Logan was lying about something, as he regularly did, and he got a stutter and can't get words out. She also said she believed Logan was okay. John hit him a couple of times in the stomach because he wouldn't talk. She told him to stop it because he was being too harsh, and John said that the only way Logan understood was with pain. She then went on to say that she was frightened of John and was scared he would have her killed if she told the truth. She added, quote, "Jay's in the SAS. He would have me killed. He said he would have me killed. He told me he was part of the SAS and his family had connections everywhere. He said his parents were founding members of the SAS. He said I could not leave him, and if I left because of Logan, he would kill him. I am terrified of him. I saw him punch him in the stomach in the hallway and he went flying. That's how he got the carpet burn. I am scared of him. He's going to have me killed for talking. He's going to kill my family. He's going to have me killed." End of quote. Yes, I think that the over dramatic here is an understatement. She also claimed that Craig swept Logan's legs and punched him to the floor with the encouragement of John. She also said that John actually called Craig over and said, quote, "If he flinches one more time while I'm talking to him, have him," and said sweep and punch, as they both did martial arts. End of quote. Angharad maintained that she slept throughout the night of July the 30th and morning of July 31st, and said that the lights going off and on in Logan's bedroom were in fact the security lights outside the property. She claimed she would not have woken up during the night because she was on medication that knocked her out. Yep. In his police interview, Craig denied being responsible for causing Logan's death and claimed he believed John was fly tipping rubbish when he followed him to the riverbank. He said Angharad was up during the night and described her as acting hysterically, but when he tried to enter Logan's bedroom, he was prevented from opening the door. I mean, this is a ridiculous story, honestly. Do you really go at 3 in the morning to, throw rubbish in the river? I get that people do fly tipping and they kind of hide it, but come on, I mean, who wakes up in the night to go and throw rubbish out in the river? It just, it doesn't make any sense. When asked why he didn't mention this previously in his first interview, Craig said, quote, "Yes, the reason I said no was because I thought it was a dream. When you said it, it must have happened because the same thing happened in my dream. So it must not have been a dream. I was just trying to get in. I was trying to see because I heard Angharad say he's dead and I wanted to see if he was okay, and he weren't." End of quote. Oh, Craig. He is such a bad liar. This is all I'm gonna say. He is a terrible liar. His story just sounds so childish. It really does. Craig denied that he and John attacked Logan days before his death. I know that we've talked about this before, but The autopsy report actually indicated that there were 56 external injuries on Logan's body, mostly bruising. He suffered a blunt force trauma injury to the head. There was evidence that he suffered another non-fatal injury at least 36 hours before his death. Elsewhere on his body, his injuries were consistent with 3 or 4 hard punches to his abdomen and a kick to the rear. He suffered substantial internal bleeding. There was a tear to the lower part of the right lobe of the liver. There was a 5 cm tear to the root of the small bowel mesentery. The duodenum had torn away from the head of the pancreas, and there was degloving of the duodenum, the inner tube separating from the outer tube, together with 2 ruptures. The injuries to the duodenum were the sort of injuries caused by high velocity impact or a fall from over 10 feet. The combination of injuries in the abdomen was indicative of severe localized blunt force injury inflicted by a blow, kick or weapon. The inflicting of these injuries on a small defenseless 5-year-old is nothing short of terrifying. Just, sit down for a second and just imagine a 5-year-old child to suffer all these injuries. They would have been inflicted with extreme force. He would have been in agonizing pain. What did Logan do to deserve this? What kind of monsters are these people? In all probability, Logan was already dying, and much of what his mother described was consistent with the presentation of the injuries that he received. It's not known if Logan slipped slowly into unconsciousness or he became unconscious immediately. It could have been both, because that would be consistent with what Angharad said about how Logan appeared on the Friday. He wouldn't stand up, he sat on the floor, he wouldn't eat, and also because they only started planning to cover up his death on Saturday, July 31st. These were calculated moves which indicated clear planning. Which mother would decide that the best course of action is to turn the washing machine on and wash the bedsheet of their child who'd gone missing? Reminds me really of Kate McCann and how she washed Madeline's cuddly toy after she'd gone missing.
The beginning of the end of 5-year-old Logan Mwangi's life was an argument over who spilled a drink on a stereo. His mother, Angharad Williamson, told a court that row between her and Logan's stepfather, Jay Cole, escalated quickly. Jay suggested the little boy found the argument funny, and when Logan smirked, she claimed the 40-year-old punched him twice in the stomach. She sobbed while describing seeing her son fall to the floor. Giving evidence at her trial, Logan's mother said, "I'd had enough. He's crossed a line hurting Logan." Asked if she had told Cole she wanted to leave him, she said, "I told him that a bit later." She claimed he said, "If we break up because of Logan, I'm going to kill him." The day after the attack, she said Logan did not appear to be in pain. She put him to bed that night, and when she woke up early the next day, he was gone. The prosecution then suggested that her story was a sham. Angharad replied saying that she couldn't fake feelings, she'd been scared. Her worst nightmare had come true. Logan, she said, had gone, and she didn't know where. When initially interviewed by police, she did not tell them about the assault on her son. She claimed it was because she feared her partner, as he'd told her he was in the SAS and had been in prison. Logan's body was found in the River Ogmore 2 days after the attack. His mother, stepfather and a 14-year-old boy all deny murdering the 5-year-old.
The trial for Logan Mwangi's murder began at Cardiff Crown Court on 21st of February 2022 when prosecutor Caroline Rees, Queen's Counsel, opened the case. She said, quote, "It is the prosecution's case that Logan was murdered and each one of the defendants in the dock played their part in the killing of the 5-year-old child who would not have stood a chance against any of the defendants, let alone 3 of them together. The prosecution said that having killed Logan behind closed doors in the family home in Bridgend, each of the defendants played their part in a cover-up of the true circumstances of his death. Each was desperate to cover up their involvement in his killing and prioritized their own self-preservation over everything else, and particularly over the needs of Logan." After 2 months of evidence, the trial concluded on April 21st, 2022, when John, Angharad and Craig were found guilty of Logan's murder. Angharad and Craig were also found guilty of perverting the course of justice. John had already pleaded guilty to that charge ahead of the trial. Following the verdicts of the jury, a gathering of around 50 people came together near a bridge at Lower Jensenfried in Sarn. More than 100 teddy bears had already been laid there in memory of little Logan, along with many floral tributes. A woman who wished only to be known as Lisa, who lives in the street just behind Logan, added, quote, "I followed the case and wanted to pay my respects to little Logan to wish him on his way. I have lived in Sarn all my life. It's a very tight-knit community. The community has really pulled together. There are lots of children in Sarn. It's affected them in a big way. I think the verdict was well deserved. I would like to see them all sentenced for life, and life should mean life. I'd like to say rest in peace Logan, and he's forever in our heart." End of quote. On June 30th, the defendants were sentenced at Cardiff Crown Court. John was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 29 years. Angharad was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 28 years. And Craig was sentenced to life detention in a Young Offenders Institute with a minimum of 15 years. The judge said that Craig acted either as his father told him to or to mirror his actions.
Logan Mwangi was a happy and loving boy, but small for his age and vulnerable. Weighing only 3 stone, he was helpless as his stepdad John Cole and 13-year-old stepbrother Craig Mulligan beat him mercilessly with his own mother's encouragement. The 3 of them plotted to deceive police after dumping Logan's body in the nearby River Ogmore. They pretended to be a distraught family, but South Wales police thought otherwise.
All right, John.
In custody, Angharad's Williamson continued with the act.
And then I woke up and Logan wasn't there.
Logan's biological father, Ben Moangi, was in court today to see the 3 murderers handed life sentences. His ex-partner will serve a minimum of 28 years, Cole a minimum of 29, while Craig Mulligan, Cole's stepson who had come to live in the house, will serve at least 15 years. Ben was stopped from seeing his son by Williamson and Cole and is now fighting to change the law. He told ITV that social services should be duty-bound to tell biological parents when their children are believed to be at risk.
If I can stop this from happening to anybody else, then that would be the most positive thing. My lasting memory of him was just a happy little boy. They called me Daddy.
Some of the tributes to Logan's brief life may be fading, but his killers sentenced today have a lifetime to reflect on their actions and the happy, innocent life they so needlessly ended.
Ben Moangi described his son as the cutest little boy and an intelligent boy. Ben also said, quote, "The last 10 months have been hell for me. I can't sleep and keep experiencing recurring nightmares. My dreams of Logan are so vivid. Logan comes to tell me that he's okay and to check if I'm okay. He runs into him in my arms and I hold him tight, but he then slowly disappears until he's no longer in my arms. I wake up screaming and crying. I find it difficult to go back to sleep. I don't want to go back to sleep because I don't want to experience these dreams because they are so painful." End of quote. Ben said that the death of Logan affected his family and friends and he has been unable to go out anymore. He added, quote, "At this moment I have extreme trust issues. I can't see a future in another relationship or having more children because I don't want something like this to ever happen to me again. I have accepted that this is my life now. One of the biggest questions in my whole entire life I'll always be asking myself is why? Why did this happen? Why did Logan have to die? For the past 5 years, I've been struggling and trying to fight to just see Logan. She made my life an absolute misery. All I've wanted to do was just be a dad." End of quote. Throughout his short life, Logan was cruelly beaten by his mother, stepfather and stepbrother, isolated from the family unit, punished severely, called names and ultimately murdered in his own home before being dumped in a river like fly-tipped rubbish by those who were meant to protect him. The lies, deception and stomach-turning performances carried out by his family in a bid to avoid justice saw police officers make the traumatic discovery of Logan lying pale, cold and alone in the water of the River Ogmore, dressed in mismatched pajamas. Unlike his mother and stepfather, the emergency services provided Logan with more care and concern than he had received in a very long time, as they fought to save his life. But it was all for nothing. Logan was already dead when he entered the river, having been carried by John from Angharad's house in the dead of night with the assistance of 13-year-old Craig. The spite, contempt and disdain with which they treated a 5-year-old child is utterly shocking and begs the question of how was this allowed to happen. Benjamin didn't know that Logan had been placed on the child protection register in the months before he was killed. He had not seen Logan for around 3 years when he was found deceased on the morning of July 31st, 2021. Now, Ben is campaigning for a law change. He wants estranged parents to be given notice if social services flag safety concerns about their child. He said if he knew about Logan, he would have been the first one there to take him away. Quote, they, social services, would have looked at his injuries and thought that he wouldn't have self-inflicted them. There are 3 people in the house, so this is obviously a dangerous environment. We need to contact his father and let him know what happened. But I had absolutely no idea what was happening to my son. Speaking about his campaign named Logan's Law in honor of his son, he said, quote, this is exactly what Logan's Law is doing. What it's going to be about is to let estranged parents like myself know if their child is known to social services. If I would have had any inkling whatsoever that Logan was known, I would have got him. I would have gone with a police escort or worked with social services, and I would have said, okay, I'm getting my son's things and I'm taking him away from this obviously hostile environment. If he is in danger, then let's make him safe. But for the fact that I didn't know, which is one of the big questions that is going to be asked in the child protection review, is going to be, why wasn't I contacted? You would have thought, as his biological father, if he was on the social services register, then I should have known. End of quote. A social services investigation is now underway into the circumstances of Logan's death, as Craig had only returned to the care of John Cole just 5 days before Logan's murder in July 2021. A case review into Logan's death has now been launched by the local council, but Welsh First Minister Mark Drakeford has been slammed for rejecting demands for Wales to follow England and Scotland and set up an inquiry to examine the crisis in social care on a national level. Welsh Conservative Gareth Davis said he was surprised First Minister Mark Drakeford rejected the plea as Logan's death exposed some serious shortcomings. The Welsh government said it would closely consider the results of a Children's Services inspection and the review of events before Logan's death. The last major social services failure in Wales was just 6 weeks ago, when adoptive father Matthew Scully Hicks killed his 18-month-old daughter Elsie under the eyes of social workers. Logan had been stepped down on the child protection register just 2 weeks before his death by social workers from Bridgend Council in South Wales. The same Children's Services Department also supported moving Craig out of foster care and into the family home, despite having made threats to kill Logan. That fact was only reportable after a judge ruled it was of significant public interest to name Craig so the family dynamics could be explained. But at every step in proceedings, Bridgend Council tried to hide their missed opportunities to save Logan, with social workers requesting to be anonymized during court proceedings. Prosecutor Carolyn Rees Queen's counsel told the court, quote, several social workers have raised requests for anonymity orders. It seems they have been wrongly informed they are entitled to them. End of quote. The council kept a close eye on proceedings throughout the 9-week trial, often having 2 press officers and 2 solicitors in court, as well as other officials from Children's Services. Later, after the guilty verdicts were returned, lawyers from the council briefed Craig's defense team that they wished to keep the teenage killer anonymous because naming him could affect his rehabilitation. Even though during the trial he was referred to only as X, now we know his name because the judge decided to lift the anonymity order. And Guys, this is the truly horrific case of Logan Mwangi, and it feels like at this point the story keeps repeating and repeating and repeating, only the names are different. Yet again, we see a mother putting her new partner's needs first before her own child, which is, again, I'm going to say, and I feel like I sound like a broken record in all my videos, what I think is that even though all three of them were responsible for Logan's death, it was probably Craig who killed them. The red flags were definitely there for a very long time. Craig was violent, he loved torturing animals, which is never a good sign. He even expressed that he wanted to kill Logan, his foster carers and their dog. He said it so many times that he wants to kill kids, to kill people, but social services saw it as banter, which I am honestly struggling to understand. I've heard this one before, very close to me, deemed as dark humor and things like that, but we all know that children do kill, and I am struggling to understand why don't we take what children say more seriously, because at the end of the day, when you sit and you think on killing someone and you start imagining it in your head, that means that you are thinking on it. That means that you want to know how it's like. It's more than just curiosity or imagination. When you actually sit down and you think on it, it just messes you up, because children are naturally curious, impressionable, and when they know that they shouldn't be doing something, they will try to do it even more. So for a child to say that they want to kill another child, it's something that I think, in my honest opinion, we should be taking very seriously. And it just goes to show that something is not quite right and they need help, because no child who doesn't have issues talks about killing people and even goes into detail on how they want to do it. Even more so, if an adult would say that to someone, that they want to kill a person, the police would arrest them. So how is it different with children? How do we make it different with children? Don't we have already so many examples of children killing people? 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 9, 10, 11-year-olds, teenagers. We need to stop thinking that only adults can kill, and we need to start looking at the fact that children are as capable of killing as any adult is. So yes, I do believe that Craig ultimately did it. John helped him because he was his son, and Angharad, well, she knew that she was using Logan as well as the others, so obviously that she didn't want to go to prison. Just like we've seen, John and Craig stuck together because they were the closest, right? Angharad was only the stepmother and Craig was John's son, so naturally that he would side with his son, and both of them turned on Angharad, and then she turned on both of them. Then they eventually blamed each other, pointed the fingers at each other. I am also trying to, kind of wrap my mind around social services not informing Ben of Logan being on the register. Ben was his biological father, he had parental responsibilities of Logan, and he had all the rights as his father to know that Logan was placed on the register. Why wouldn't he be informed at all about what was happening to his son? I'm 100% sure that if he would be his mother instead and not a father, the mother would have been informed. And again, it just goes back to bias, in my opinion. You have fathers who are not believed because they are the man. You have fathers who are being used by their partners, but they are not believed because they are the man. You have mothers who stop their children from seeing their father, but nothing is done about this. Yet, if you have a father who stops the child seeing the mother, social services get involved immediately. Why is that? What's the difference? Why is a father different to a mother when it comes to legal rights? Why do social services think that it's okay for the biological father who has rights not to be informed if something is happening to their child? Why do social services, the legal system, and the police always side with the mother? This is not only biased, but it's fundamentally wrong, and it gets fathers to completely distrust the system because it's always working against them. We need to stop that. Fathers need to be given just as much right as the mother is when they have parental responsibility, and of course when they are good fathers, because obviously you don't want to give a child to another father, right? If only this would have been done, Logan Mwangi would still be with us here today. Thank you so much guys for watching today's video. Take care, stay safe, and if you are interested to know any of the makeup that I used to do my today's look, then all the products are linked in the description down below under this video. Again, thank you for watching, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.